It is time to engage. Welcome. We are officially in the back half of Picard. This is episode 6. We're going into spoilers as usual on The Impossible Box, which is like a vaguely sexual name. I mean, it's like Romulans have like the combination of like a Kinder Surprise and a I guess Rubik's Cube that just makes some Romulans want to smash them. And so there's an impossible box, but then there's also the impossible box, the cube of the Borg, which is the artifact, and then you had also, Vanya, noticed
the Queen's cell. It opens almost like the Romulan Rubik's Cube.
It's like the room of requirement.
Yeah.
Catch.
Yeah, lots of impossible boxes.
Cool. It like separates in the same way.
And then there's also like the impossible box of Soji's mind.
Right.
Or, depending what the Romulan's up to, other impossible boxes. There's a lot going on here when it comes to boxes.
It actually, the Romulan, like the Queen's cell opening like that, and then the Romulan toy made me think, how much do the Romulans have to do with the Borg?
Yeah, it's an interesting choice to create this like cascading the cascading cubes, because that is in no way in any other implementation of the Borg.
Wait a minute. You know what that means? Maybe the Romulans created the Borg.
No.
Maybe.
But let's get into some of the interesting history, some of the cool moments of continuity we got in this episode. I loved hearing about the Sicarians because, guys, I didn't love every episode of Voyager, but one episode that was very interesting was when Voyager met the Sicarians and tried to like buy or barter that very technology that the Borg just frigging stole. That's the way to do it, really. If you want it, take it.
Yeah.
Good job, Borg.
It was well done, and it's so integral to Voyager.
Yeah, it was a really early moment for Voyager where they decided, hey, we're not going to be pirates. We're going to, try to do this the right way. And then some of them tried to be pirates. It was an interesting moral conundrum early in the Voyager
because it kind of showed that separation between the Maquis and and Starfleet. And, now we're starting to see how Starfleet is shadier.
Yeah, God, they're shady all the time. In fact, we were talking about Nemesis as something that we've all revisited recently because, just to feel the gap in time that we've got between the end of TNG and the beginning of Picard, and also to see like this busted version of Picard that exists 4 years after Nemesis, because in Picard, for some reason, he is real decrepit 16 years before.
Ages quickly.
Yeah.
But the thing about Nemesis, I realized, because I saw it a couple days ago, and I wanted to sort of revisit. I've been revisiting the movies, and I realized that's the way to enjoy Picard, is to look at the movies and the broad strokes of the movies, right? The last thing that we saw of JeanLuc Picard was Nemesis in 2002. And they were talking, at the end of it, they were talking about, well, the Romulans want to talk. And then you flash forward 18 years later, and they are talking with the Romulans.
Yeah, and Picard tried to rescue the Romulan people.
Right.
And so they have done some interesting bits of continuity in that way.
Yeah.
And I'd like to talk to you guys about the fact that this episode had a beginning, a middle, and an end, and managed to get us all storylines threaded together. Vanya, did you feel like this was a long time coming?
Yes, it was such a relief to not have like flashbacks. I mean, we're kind of getting a flash. We're not really getting a flashback. We're getting a message from her dream, but it's not like, there has to be this big exposition. We kind of know who all the players are, and now we can actually go forward, because it wasn't going forward. Nothing was going anywhere.
Yeah.
This one was like, it kind of took off, and it was exciting in that way.
Yeah, I mean, as fun as the 7 of 9 episode was, it kind of went nowhere when you think about it. Like, there was nothing that happened in that episode that's necessary to get them to where they are now, other than, we got Bruce Maddox. It felt like a side quest.
Yeah, now they're on an actual mission with the people.
They're on mission. They're doing the thing they want to do.
Yeah.
Well, I got to say, this was my favorite episode so far. Even past the premiere, I think it blows it out of the water. And also incredible is it's another woman director. I'm not sure how to pronounce her name, but a Hispanic woman as well as I think a Hispanic man, Nick Zayas, I believe is his name. And she comes from an editing background. Right? This episode just flew, man. This was like humming on all cylinders. I loved it. I love the fact that we revisit Picard's trauma. That's always the best thing. You know, his struggles with the Borg.
This really felt like some of the strongest PTSD we've seen. Because in First Contact, you get the idea very clearly that he is still struggling with these memories. But in this, when you see him as like a frailer man, because in Nemesis, he was still in great shape, and in First Contact, he's got these pipes. Like he's like JeanLuc Picard.
Yeah.
Like it feels like Die Hard.
Very much like that.
And so it's nice to have him now in this weakened state, still being haunted by this, and again having a former Borg to commiserate with. Now, do we think, Vanya, that whatever it was, what miracle thing that the EMH came up with to bring 7 of 9 from her busted, early, like, assimilated as a child state into super hot, like, 7 of 9, not a blemish to be found except for the beautiful pieces of metal. Vanya, do you feel like there's a deep amount of inconsistency with how Borg are reclaimed?
Yeah, it's interesting because, well, 7 of 9 clearly was the luckiest. She's the lucky. Oh, obviously, other than
Icheb looked good.
Other than Jean-Luc, right? Because, well, yeah, Icheb.
He just had a little funny thing here.
Yeah, and then Picard, right? But yeah, it's like it makes you think. You know, like the Doctor on Voyager, like how in love he is with 7 of 9, and like he's like Bride of Frankenstein, so piecing her together, and he fell in love with her that way, you know, and it's like you could see, you can argue that he had more care with her.
Maybe.
And they're kind of doing like the express
assembly line
version of it, and they're like, you know, we're happy with this. You're not a Borg anymore.
You're good to go.
That's good.
You got one eye. It'll do.
Yeah. And you know, he's looking like good, but like rough. You know.
Yeah, like Hugh looks very like Frankenstein's monster. So.
Yeah. So is that as because I was thinking about Icheb and I was thinking about 7 of 9, and we were saying how last week, you know, that's not her actual eye. That would be her Borg eye, and I was like, is that Hugh's real eye? You know, and the one that's.
I mean, I guess it comes down to how the reclamation is working now, because ultimately. It's been 17 years since they had to fix up a Borg on Voyager. But now, I guess none of that technology translated. When Voyager did their great big brain dump of look what we learned in the Delta Quadrant, I guess the Doctor was like, I'm going to keep this bit about fixing up and prettying up
Hang on a
Borg.
second. In the future, in Star Trek, I mean, we have all sorts of sort of, you know, derma regenerators and all sorts of stuff, removing scars. I mean, there really shouldn't be any scars on an X-Borg. It should be like, oh, it's done. We fix that up. Why are people with eyes that are thing and torn? It shouldn't happen.
Humans have scars. Like we see that Rios, we saw him with his shirt off. And he has more than one scar.
He also healed up so fast.
Yeah.
Right.
Because his EMH was like, oh, let me re-dermal. And it's like, no, don't do that. And then, 5 days later?
But he has
he's just healed right up. He's got a scar. But he had a deep gash of... I don't know, man.
Yeah.
I think
so maybe he went back in there. Maybe let him go back
Maybe Rios is like, I'll just dermal regenerate this shit myself, make everyone think I'm still a tough guy.
So the question is, well, why wouldn't you just fix up the XBs as good as new? Like, you have all of that technology.
Maybe it's about time. They're just we could do that later. We'll do the cosmetics after. We just want you to be functioning right now because they're going through so many. So they're like, you can handle that on your own. Maybe when you could take care of that,
just figure out your copay, deal with your insurance company, and we'll get that part figured out.
Right.
It's just the emergency stuff.
We're just cranking them out right now.
Oh man. Yeah, I feel like that's one thing that feels a bit inconsistent, and it's just that aesthetic. But imagine how much less interesting it would be if it was just totally gorgeous people walking around I'm an XB. Now, I've got to say, it did feel like the tiniest bit of retread in this when Hugh is telling Picard about what an XB is.
Yeah.
Because once again, we don't need to know that. We've been hearing it for weeks.
Yes.
And there was that moment where this sort of waste of writing happened. And Picard is learning things that we already know. Now, it's important on his journey, and certainly important for Hugh, who then says, look how important it is to have a name. Because it made a big difference for me on the Enterprise.
Sure.
So I totally get that, but again, it felt like if you're going to play with this name XB, this would have been the time to get into what an XB is.
Like
not
instead of
3 episodes ago and 4 episodes ago.
This is where it mattered because of Hugh's name. There was a lot of repetitive things in this again. It wasn't as bad, but it was like Girardi saying, oh, my credentials, maybe that will, the kinds of credentials I have. I'm like, the amount of times that we've heard about her credentials, I swear, I couldn't take it. I'm so glad it was short. I guess I was not going to be able to take it.
Now,
I was going to scream.
What were your feelings about her random fling with Rios?
Oh, I'm like...
Yep.
Putting my hand up because I prayed to the television gods. I watch a lot of TV, and I prayed to the trope television gods. Please do not make them a romantic item. Please,
Thank God.
please save us from this.
Yeah.
And then they did it, and I was like, no. And at first I thought, oh, she's kind of backing away.
She's
and
got a
superpower. I was like,
a superpower.
And I was like, yes.
Good
saved.
job. Subvert
and then,
my expectations.
Then I was like, oh, it actually was more realistic because she's not a fool because she's gonna want to lock that down.
Yeah.
Right?
So
if it's on offer.
I was like, oh, it's realistic.
It wasn't romantic. It was just sexual.
It was
like,
utilitarian.
He's hot.
He's like,
so
I'm gonna feel good for 2 hours, he says.
Yeah.
And then we'll forget about it.
He's like lonely. He's always out there by himself. Look, he's just surrounded by...
All his EMHs just look like him.
Yeah, gross.
Or, I mean, if you're a narcissist.
So I didn't want it to happen, and then it happened.
Now, on the topic of potential relationships, the Romulannisters. Let's talk about this brother and sister who, again, had a scene where it's, I'm going to take this entire mission away from you. Oh, wait, maybe you're going to say something interesting.
Why does the sister keep trying to touch him? Why?
Because they're trying to
it's
do
never
that.
worked. She keeps going in, and he's like, every episode so far.
But again,
stop trying to touch him. I think you should get it by now.
Is it just me, or is this the one time this scene that they've played like 5 times actually went somewhere?
I was just about to say, this is their best scene together.
Right?
It actually
Things
is.
happen.
Yep.
Things. He was like the most interesting he'd ever been.
Yeah.
Because
he was doing something.
And I love that. I actually really loved that moment when he says, you have to be patient. Something you've never had. So now we're learning something. We're actually learning something about her, the character. Like driving dialogue is the best kind of dialogue.
Yeah, this is an episode.
It was the best scene.
Yeah.
With the best dialogue.
No, I don't know if it was the best in the episode, but it was
the best of theirs
for those two.
Yeah.
But when that box opened, when he waited and that they took that time, so it's like it's okay to have those spaces where you're taking up time, and we have to wait just as much as her.
Yeah, just use them.
But actually have it go forward, and then the payoff of that later is great. You know what I mean?
Because,
so it's not like we're just learning that for no reason.
Yeah, and on the topic of Nemesis, we know Romulans love little boxes that open up when you walk away from them and poison everybody. And so I enjoyed this callback.
Right.
We got to see someone open up a box, but I gotta say, for people who are supposedly very good at killing synths, this was 100% ineffective.
It was not good, and we're waiting for it because they're so great.
How do you mean?
Like it didn't
work.
They managed to spit something on Daj that killed her in a second.
Right.
But Soji is choking on this radiation for minutes at a time.
Yeah.
And then she's like, well, I guess I'm gonna do this long enough to build an exit.
Yeah.
It just seemed like a little convenient that we can kill her in an instant here, but this one we're just gonna, I don't know, watch her choke to death and suffer?
It would have been good if somehow she receives whatever Daj has, she would get information to upload.
Yeah.
Or maybe she does. Maybe as she's activated, she gets all I have to be more cautious, faster.
Maybe their positrons are quantum entangled so that she's able to learn things that the other one does.
Yeah, so maybe it's just okay, well, now it's more heightened when she kind of I don't know.
But it was nice to see. It was nice to see Narek genuinely sad, when he had that moment where he
Yeah.
said, "Because you're not real," and then
Yeah.
set the thing down and walked on out and knew that he was going to kill her. What do we feel about Romulans being named like cats? If you're one of the like eight people who saw the abomination that is Tom Hooper's Cats film, you'll find it interesting that cats have 3 names, much like Romulans,
and they're the same kind of names.
Same kind of names.
It's the Romulans have their outside name.
And
The
then
cats
the
have the
family name.
fancy name.
Yeah, yeah.
Right? And then the cats have the family name, and the Romulans have
family
the family
names.
name, and then they have their like secret name.
Yeah.
And I was like, what?
The
Why
name-
is it
the-
so
You
the same?
literally
The name they
lifted
give to
this
the-
from cats?
Yeah.
I mean,
It's-
I've enjoyed the like Romulan duplicity
Yeah,
here and there
yeah.
that we've been getting deeper
Might be
into.
one step too far.
I will say this.
One step too
I
fast.
will say that Narek is really giving me some McCavity vibes. Yeah, I think he wants to get to the heavy side layer.
Guys, if you haven't seen
Romulans
Cats
are
yet,
jellicle cats.
yes, Romulans are just jellicle cats. If you haven't seen Cats yet, it is a fever dream that you will never recover from. I'm a recovering Cats viewer.
Same.
It's you'll never
I'm
like.
just
I think we, even from the trailer, I think we.
Oh no.
No.
When you see what happens when Idris
but-
Elba is more naked than naked
Oh yeah,
because he's a
it's
cat.
So upsetting. But no,
And
seriously, Narek giving that like.
Very McCavity. Yeah.
But
So,
that
it's
name
30
thing.
years from now, that'll be considered a masterpiece.
Oh, I expect it will make the kind of
Oh, it's a
kooky
Rocky
money that
Horror,
Rocky Horror is
yeah.
going to. Long
Yeah.
tail.
But this, but this 3 name thing, I just really wish they rethought that.
Yeah.
You
like,
know?
everybody knew when Cats was coming out. They called that a while back.
Yeah, I
So-
wish they rethought that.
Yeah.
It was when I was looking at that whole scene, I was just like, it was weird because I was getting like that Romeo and Juliet, like Under the Sheets vibe, like
Yep.
90s Romeo and Juliet. And I was just like, yeah, their relationship is doomed. You know, probably will be doomed
Yeah.
by some sort of death, just like Romeo and Juliet. Cool. And then the Cats thing came, and I was like, oh no, I can't think of anything else.
Now, I'd like to talk about this fancy carbon dating device that Soji starts popping around.
cool.
age-
Yeah,
37 months?
Everything's 37 months.
I want that thing.
Is it my imagination, or did she never try to carbon date herself?
She didn't.
Which just seems weird. Like, you're carbon dating every memory you have, but you're not like...
Maybe because maybe in her mind she's so real that you just use that on things that are inanimate, right? So
Right.
for her that's like out of her like mode of thinking.
I must be 29 or whatever.
Yeah, exactly. Something else is wrong here with this stuff, but not me. You know, that's why it's so shocking to her when he says you're not real, because like she can't wrap her head around that.
Yeah. Now, Poise, when she was in these memory / dreams, did you get the finale of it that you wanted when she sees herself on the table, or she sees potentially Daj on the table? Is that what you were hoping for? Did it feel like it delivered?
No,
No?
actually, that was the one area. I love this episode, I really did. But that was the one thing where I actually chuckled when I saw this sort of...
Pinocchio?
It looked like a Pinocchio thing. I'm like, this wasn't what I was expecting from an android, a complex machine. And there's like this wooden sort of, puppet thing.
Yeah.
I'm like, where's all the machinery go? Where's all the liquidy jelly stuff?
Because
Where's all the...
It worked for me because it's a message, but it's like it's not the exact thing because it's in the form of a dream, which dreams are
Some kind of
abstract
metaphor,
like that.
yeah.
So if they're connected to data, then that makes a lot of sense because of Measure of a Man.
Yep.
You know, when Riker says Pinocchio's broken, his strings have been cut.
yeah.
And he says its strings have been cut.
Yeah.
So it's a callback to
But do you
the
think
Pinocchio
they were
thing.
thinking that? Do you think they were thinking that hard?
Yes, because
You think
the
they did that
episode
work?
that I can't stop talking about the most, and I think it's because it's like Michael Chabon, if he watched one episode of
It was
TNG,
that one.
that was the one he watched. That's like he watched that and Best of Both Worlds, and then he just went, okay, I know what
Just
Star
mash
Trek.
that into 10 hours.
Yeah, exactly. I really do think it is a callback to that specifically.
You think so?
Yeah.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Now, did you get the impression that somebody who or I guess something that is programmed to not see what her father's face is, would be able to see what the moons are like over there. Like, does it seem convenient? Right. Are we hoping this is more of a plot? Like, why is only that part blurred?
But also, how could you? I mean, if a dream goes a certain way, I mean, how can you suddenly see what's behind that wall in your dream? Like, how can you see stuff that there's no information?
It reminds me a bit of Schism. That schism, depending on what country you're from. That episode where a bunch of members of the crew of the Enterprise are trying to rebuild a common dream they had. This moment where he's like, okay, what's over here? Look around there. What do you see? And if her brain wasn't a holodeck, it would be different. Because that is all programmed in a certain way. And I guess it means instead of it being a movie, it's a video game. You know, like in a movie, you can't turn around and see what's happening.
You can't go 360.
Yeah, but in a video game, you can be like, what's down that corridor?
That's interesting.
Again, it makes sense to me. It makes sense to me, again, that he knows very smartly, Narek knows, that it's not a dream. It's a message, right? So he feels like that dream unlocks a bunch of things about her. And so if the Romulans are using her to look for something, he has a feeling that it's all in her head, right? So her origin with the two moons is whatever that is integral to her existence.
So the information is in there. It's like VR then.
So he's like with his suggestions, he's like dialing up what's already there. And sometimes it comes out like as as like very like obvious, and then other times it's like a metaphor for what it is.
Now, one of the interesting metaphors, or I guess it was more of a simile, hard to say, was when she said all the orchids, they're like his children. Do we think that means there are dozens and dozens of Dajas?
Yeah, I don't know. Like, it's like when you find out there's another data, right? It's like I feel like it never ends. There's always like a bottomless more. Pit. You know what I mean?
But that's just really to sort of serve whatever writer comes up with the thing that they're just leaving these data all over these androids all over the system.
Look, another Soong.
There's another one.
Yeah.
Or there's like a root of something. Maybe
why would he do that?
Yeah.
Maybe there was like a root of like synthetic life that is bigger than
just scattered on every planet.
Like
all over the place.
like in was it The Chase when all of these different humanoids were trying to get to the source of where all humanoids came from.
Yeah.
That was a fantastic TNG episode, which again, easily a movie.
Yes.
And also easily an entire season of television or a whole series could be wrapped around that.
It's very cool.
It's such a great episode.
I think it's actually possible that Picard was made for primarily for people who haven't seen Next Generation. I'm beginning to get a sense of that.
Oh, well.
It's almost like we take a back seat. The hardcore fans almost take a back seat. So somebody could come in to Picard not knowing anything and just, they're going on a mission and they're going to, and you can actually sort of maybe build a story.
I think that's what they want.
I think that's what Kurtzman's original idea was, because as far as I can tell, Kurtzman does not understand Star Trek in any way, shape, or form.
Whoa, wait.
Oh, like
just
the
get out of
Kurtzman.
here.
Yeah, like
You're
Kurtzman.
acting surprised that Matt said that?
No,
that's really funny.
Kurtzman doesn't get the heart and soul of Star Trek at all. And Michael Chabon, I'm hoping, has a better idea of it in this season, but this episode shows that this writer did really, really beautiful, tight work. But this season, being as sloppy and as repetitive and as inefficient as it is, shows that the Kurtzman-Chabon handoff was messy. They are not in agreement on where things are going, which really reminds me of the disaster of season 1 of Discovery, where Brian Fuller pitched a show that was a single contained anthology season that would end and you would never see those people again. And then Alex Kurtzman, when he became like hands-on showrunner, just decided this is the new show. We're going to hang out with these people forever. And that show did not have the legs to continue existing, and that's why they had to fling it 1,000 years out of my face so that they could stop screwing with canon.
So they can start again, basically.
Yeah.
I do feel like they definitely want to make Star Trek for like different people, like new people, and then they're kind of losing at times, not all the time, what Star Trek is. I mean, I always want more Star Trek. I'll take more Star Trek always. But yeah, it is a challenge, especially when you burn like almost 5 episodes. Like you burn through, a lot of time. Like that's not cool.
Yeah, and the fact that episodes 1, 2, and 3 were supposed to be episodes 1 and 2, and then they wasted a bit of time picking up some people and getting rid of some people. Like I know Elnor's coming back, and apparently 7 has another episode. So 7 isn't dead and Elnor isn't dead, even though they both basically had the same ending of the same style of episode of, oh no, they're coming. Like we ended the 2 episodes the same way. Deadly, vicious character. Yeah.
Right. And I think Hugh's coming back.
Yeah, Hugh is in the next episode, I think.
But I think he's even maybe in more than that, I think.
Oh, hopefully. I'm really enjoying him.
He's great. I also read that he asked for the hug.
Yeah.
He wanted that.
Oh, beautiful.
To do that hug. It wasn't It wasn't scripted.
And by the way, that is the first character that loves Picard in this show.
Yes.
So far. It is.
Rios likes.
Not really.
Picard.
He doesn't love Picard.
He's playing him cool.
But Rios
like, hey,
is worried about liking Picard because if he gets too attached. But Hugh has none of those worries.
Hugh just like hugs him and loves him, and it's like,
but
finally.
Do you want to know why? Because actually, specific to this episode, is because Picard hasn't treated him like garbage. Because look at what happened with Raffi in this episode.
Oh my God, she had to smoke some more space crack.
She did.
And then she delivers,
Lost one of her friends.
She really truly delivers, and then Picard's like, "Yay!" And then he's like, "Relieved." I
know.
Look at what she did
I know,
for me.
I know.
And Rios is the only person that's looking after. But listen,
I couldn't believe
like,
that.
I know you keep saying that nobody likes him, but he kind of deserves all this stuff. He's
a
not a good friend.
But this is not the Picard that we know.
No, but it is.
This
kind
is
of
being written differently.
It is the Picard.
The Picard of TNG would have had the sensitivity to go like, "Oh, you just fucked up your friendship with somebody," and he wouldn't go, "Hooray!" This is a writing thing.
Because he was closed off the majority of the show. He wasn't like, it's not this like this man had a lot of friends.
This guy has enough intelligence.
Well, no,
From 7 seasons of TNG to know that JeanLuc Picard would never be so oblivious to
in your
human
humble
relationships.
opinion.
Absolutely.
I need to agree with both of you in this. That there's.
Hooray! You just lost your friend and your contact. Hooray!
Yeah. It's
No.
Again, if Picard's Irumodic syndrome was like flaring up and he's losing his mind, I would be more on your side about this, Vanya. But at this stage, they are writing an entirely different character in so many ways and just calling him Picard and getting away with it because of the 20-year gap.
I don't think it's that hard, and like I don't think it's that like I don't think they're playing it that fast and loose. I mean, I went back and I watched just today, like, 4 episodes of TNG, and sometimes he's like, he's not the easiest person to deal with. I will agree, he's not the same diplomat, the same, conscientious person on that level. But I was watching Best of Both Worlds, and when Guinan goes to talk to Riker about Picard, she's giving him the let him go speech when he's the cutest. She says, "Do you know why we're so close?" And he says he doesn't know. And of course he doesn't know, because Picard's not close with anybody. And she says, "We're beyond friendship, we're beyond family." So that's like a rarity. So when he has closest, we don't actually know what he's like when he's like really close to somebody. Like
it'll be interesting to see next week.
We know TNG, but it's
because the planet that they just Sicarianed to is, I believe, the planet that Will and Deanna are on.
I just want to touch on what Vanya was saying about family. Is that I realized something as well. Is that there was a feeling of loneliness that I had for Picard since this series began. And I only identified it once I saw that Hugh hug. It's like, yes, he's surrounded by people, but these are all new people who we've never seen before, who he had no sort of real deep-rooted connection to.
And to be honest, on screen, he has virtually no connection to Hugh anyway. Like
No.
in Descent, in Iborg, like there is no time where he has any emotional through line with Hugh.
No.
He's like, he keeps his distance specifically in that episode. So this beautiful hug, because the Delarco treated it like he was seeing his father who had
Who
died
died
in the
like
last,
17 years ago. Almost the same amount of time.
So to treat it with that kind of emotional resonance either means something happened we never saw, which we should be told about, or they are screwing up the emotion of that scene.
Or
because the writers are just like manufacturing feelings.
no, the way I understood it is the same way that he connected, not in the same like jovial way, with Seven. They all know each other. He was the cutest in the time that Hugh was, right? But now
Good
Hugh's an
point.
actual human again. He can connect with. He knows Picard probably more than a lot of the people that
Good
are
point.
closest to him. And so they all have this connection through that.
So does Picard want to just give a great big hug to every
I
XB
feel-
he finds?
No, I feel
That's
like
a good
with
point.
yeah, no, it's true. But like I feel
They're
like
all Care Bears
his
now.
connection to Hugh's connection to Geordi, you know what I mean? Those kinds of things is like he's finding positivity in a very painful, part in his life, which we know for sure he never dealt with. Like even with
this
Hugh
felt like
Iborg,
this felt like the most closure and like a beginning to how Picard feels, and then getting to witness something, and then at the end realizing they are victims. I was a victim. I am not a monster. They are not monsters.
Yes.
Which is funny because I was thinking, I took a note about that. Trauma with all the Star Trek captains is so important to sort of revisit or to get closure on, right? I mean, we have Picard, the death of his brother and son, what else? What else did
He did Wolf 359.
him being violated as a Borg, right? Cisco also had trauma, right?
Yeah.
Kirk lost his son. All of these captains have had some sort of. Cisco lost his wife and
Wolf 359
thing, right?
Yep.
I think
Janeway.
Janeway's the only one who didn't have
Janeway's
any.
fine. She's like, I
She
got
didn't
that.
have anything.
I
You
got,
know what?
I got
I'll just
this,
go back in time
I got
and
this
change
boy.
it.
I got this boy toy at home. I want to get back to.
No, seriously. She's like, if something happens, I'll just change it into the timeline, and then everything will be back together because that's what Voyager
I think she's the only one that didn't have any trauma.
I mean,
because even
smart lady.
no, even when
love
when they're
her.
supposed to get back
There's no trauma.
way after, she was just like, no, we're doing this in 7 years because I'm not dealing with this crap. Well, I'm fixing it.
Yeah.
No, that's not like.
I don't know. I thought that
Not
ending.
cool. Yeah,
That was
the
great.
ending is good, but when you've been using that same thing for 7 years,
Right.
I think
And
enough.
yet we still love Janeway. And
Oh, yeah,
yet
Janeway's
She's
awesome.
probably my favorite captain.
Yep. And I mean, we also got a good amount of trauma with Archer being like the first captain out
Yes.
there, and the way after the first 2 years he came back scarred and thought this was a battle out there.
Yeah.
Everything is a war. Make sure that the Discovery is well, or the Challenger. What was the name of the second ship?
Yeah,
At the NX-02.
Yeah.
The way it was like revved up with better weapons because he was traumatized by 2 years in space. And then the Xindi attack continued to traumatize them, which traumatized me. That season was terrible. So these traumatized captains, you're right, is quite a theme. And it's nice to have an episode where we are head-on approaching that, not in the vengeance kind of way. Like, First Contact is about revenge. It's the Moby Dick. It's
Yes.
not about closure. It's not about
No.
dealing with his trauma. And this really felt like it brought it around in a beautiful
Yeah.
way for him. And I think if the rest of Picard, the next 2 seasons, aren't about the Borg, that's fine because we've closed this book for him in a really beautiful way.
I feel like, yeah, it's really great that the character is able to have these steps. I don't know. I think that he's doing a lot. He's older. He's like an old man, a feeble man, and he's just kind of doing what he wants,
Yeah, yeah.
But the thing is, it also makes me think about Starfleet and the Federation, and they have like really poor programs for people on their PTSD and their
Even though they've got a
struggles.
counselor on every ship. Although I must say, why is it that any old captain on any old ship is able to grant diplomatic status to anybody in the Romulan?
Yeah, unless she just like she was like, oh my god, they're gonna be in Romulan space. I'm just gonna like cut some corners and then talk, and then ask for forgiveness later. You know what I mean? Unless that's what she did.
Yeah,
I think that's what it was, because she only said yes when they said, okay, we're like literally there.
We're on their doorstep, so
you're gonna have to. Could you?
And then you know, she was like, I'll just figure something out, and then she had the paperwork like in her drawer, and she faxed it. She faxed it to them, and
everybody's ready to do that.
She was just like, she faxed it, and then she was just like, I'm gonna get in trouble, but I'll send an email, you know.
Yeah.
And
I'll explain it. Yeah.
And then they'll have to I'll take the hit later.
Fair enough.
She did.
Now I'd like to talk
She was
about.
like, do you have that Starfleet letterhead?
Yeah. Just put it on Federation
Make sure you
letterhead.
put it the right side.
Yeah. Now, I want to talk about whether this best episode you've seen,
Definitely,
Poise, was Star Trek or just good television. What do you think? Did it Trek it or wreck it?
it was both. That was a total Trek it for me, man.
All
Total
right.
Trek it. Everything was there. The pacing, even the acting got better. Patrick Stewart's acting. I'm sorry, I love you, Patrick, but it was getting. There were a couple where it was a little sort of hit and miss, a little ropey. This one was. Everything was sweet, and I think partly because these actors and crew have been working together for a few episodes now, and I think some of it has to organically sort of affects everything in terms of how things sort of gel and how they move. So definitely Trekked it, man.
All right, Vanya, how about you? Good TV, great TV.
I'm hoping this
Star
is a
Trek?
Trek face.
This is a hard one because I feel like it's a really good episode. It's like a good episode, like solid. It's exciting.
And
Is it Star Trek?
And I'm gonna say it wrecked it
no,
because I don't think that it was.
what is happening there?
I tried to like make it Star Trek. It's not really Star Trek. It's just a really good episode.
Fascinating. Fascinating.
I just gotta mess with it.
All right, interesting. Now, I have
I'm
to.
hearing this.
I'm sort of halfway in between both of you guys because this is the first good episode of this show.
Yes.
Um,
I mean, it's like it's good. It's really
yeah, like it's. I could go so far as to call it a great episode of this show. This is what peak TV is supposed to be. Yeah. It's supposed to give you a really great hour, and it felt very modern. Now, the thing for me was that, as modern as it was, it should have been episode 3. Like, we should have met Daj, lost her, gotten to Soji, and then gotten into this in episode 3. There is no excuse for the Elnor episode. The frigging 7 of 9 episode was a diversion. Like, none of that was good television.
Even 4, even give us at least to episode 4. I mean, 3 is like, that, like, even that's forgiving.
Well, do your pilot right.
Yeah.
Like, Star Trek has done this pilot right 4 times. There's 5 times. There's no reason for the 6th time for you to screw it up, Alex Kurtzman. This is something you should get frigging right at this point.
Eating time.
Yeah. Like, even Discovery did this better, and that's saying something. And I feel like wasting this kind of time is unacceptable, but we finally, after 6 hours, got a great episode of peak TV television. It would work on network, it would work on cable, it wouldn't really work binging because it ties itself up in that way. Again, form is something that Star Trek struggles with now on CBS All Access.
Apparently.
But was it Star Trek? I would say because it gets to the heart of the redemption of even the Borg, the infinite diversity and infinite combinations, that to me is what made this Star Trek. Because so many other parts of it didn't feel like Star Trek. But the redemption of the Borg is, to me...
That's a very good point.
I'm
still not changing, but
that's
a very good point.
That's what does it for me. Because I was kind of on the line, but it was that beautiful... To me, it redeems the lack of an emotional storyline that First Contact had.
Right.
Like,
but
First Contact was an action movie with no heart.
I agree.
It was a great movie. I love it. It's
probably
a great...
It's best next gen movie.
It's a great one. I mean, it's the only good one.
Go
but
see it.
But yeah, I feel like this gave me the emotional resonance that I wish they had in First Contact.
Picard, in terms of how he saw the Borg for the first time as victims,
Yeah.
was really interesting.
That was big.
First time he thought of them as victims, as opposed to like these evil, crazy.
That they
I feel like-
metastasize.
I feel
That's a great
like-
line.
I feel like maybe if I go back and watch this episode, I'll maybe see it differently, but I shouldn't have to watch it twice to get
No.
the message.
No, absolutely not. This
And
is
that's
a
I
show
find like
you should
I
watch
have
the
to
one
keep
time.
doing with this show is because I've even gone back and I watched the last 2 episodes also this past week, and I was like, yeah, these are better than the first time I saw them.
But
So
in the
it's kinda
age of
coming
peak
together.
TV,
I don't
when
want to
there's
do that every time.
there's a new season of television hitting Netflix, hitting Disney Plus, hitting Apple TV Plus every week. You do not have time to rewatch an episode of TV. These need to be great on the first watch,
Right.
and then after it's a great experience,
Yeah.
you might want it
Because
again.
the reality
Yes.
is most people are not watching it twice like us or evaluating it. Most people are like, oh, what's on TV?
Yeah.
Let me click and,
Yeah.
oh, this looks, oh.
Yeah, or
really
this just stream dropped today. I can spend 45 minutes. Or
Right.
this one's
Yes.
up 50 odd minutes, 53 I think. It's one of the longer ones.
Right.
And it didn't feel long.
Oh, yeah, it felt
clipped
really
along
fast.
at a beautiful
Beautiful.
pace. But yeah, I've got to say this is the best episode of Star Trek Picard.
Yeah.
And it hit on beautiful themes. This to me was what this show should have been from the beginning, and it feels like at this point Michael Chabon is the showrunner. Alex Kurtzman has stepped away, and we kind of know what the show is now.
Yeah.
And so it will be fascinating to see if the next
This is
4
kinda-
hours
And we
It's
have
kinda like
a
the
new
sh-
writer and a new director.
But it kind of is like the show just started now.
Yeah. Took way
it,
too
do-
long.
It does feel like that,
Yeah.
Yeah.
doesn't it?
Yeah, and so that's completely unacceptable.
It's like I had to give it a little spank just
Yeah.
'cause I was annoyed.
Exactly. How dare you? Only start now. But
Yeah.
we are excited for next week's episode, right? We get some number one. We get some Counselor Troy. I'm very excited to see what happens when, unfortunately, Picard has left more people high and dry at the Borg ship with a bunch of Romulans coming after them. He just keeps screwing people over.
Understand
You know something?
how they didn't just go.
Who was it? One of you just said that. This could have been the second episode.
Yeah. I mean,
It could have
after
been-
the piloty
Was
bit,
it you
this
said
could have
that?
been hour 3. Yeah.
Yeah, like
I
you
would've
start
forgiven
where he is
them
now,
even
and then
though
you
if
just
it
it makes sense if it was like the second or
I-
third
Yeah.
episode.
I would
episode
have
4 was a
forgiven
waste
them
of
if it
time.
was in the 4th episode. It wasn't even the 4th episode. It's the
Yeah.
6th episode.
Well, I don't.
would've
I can't
given-
forgive them for them screwing up the first 2 hours
No,
of the
I
show.
can't
so
forgive
badly.
them, but I mean, you're saying it should be the 3rd episode. That's obvious, though.
Yeah.
Right? But if they had messed up, lost one, and it was the 4th, but this is the 6th. Like,
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
I was like, okay, I would have been able to, like, maybe forgive you in the 4th.
And you know, on like the beat
4th
sheet of
episode.
this
Yeah.
season, this would have been episode 5, because
Mm-hmm.
episode 1, 2, and 3 were supposed to be episode 1 and 2. So this wasn't. We weren't supposed to have to wait this long, basically.
Yeah.
And on the topic of waiting long, did anybody else think everybody had enough time to walk through the Sakarian gateway?
Okay, so the only thing I could think of at the end was, I don't understand why Elrond is not going with him. That didn't make any sense.
Yeah.
I understand maybe why Hugh would hang
Yeah, Hugh's
back.
got a job.
And he needs to make sure that thing closes, because he doesn't want anybody to know how to
That technology is something he doesn't want to hand
access
over to the
that.
Romulans.
So that makes sense, but why Elrond?
But hang on,
Yeah,
by the way,
Elnor-
how do we know that Hugh
I
is
keep
not
calling
going to
him
be?
Elrond.
How do we
Right.
know? How do we know Hugh's not going to be penalized for this?
Oh, I expect the
No.
Romulans will
They
take
got to
this.
figure out that Hugh
The
is
Romulans
He's
won't
gonna
involved.
take it out
He's
on
gonna
him.
get messed up.
Yeah.
You know?
Picard
So it's more
just
than a
leaves
job. It's more than a
yeah.
job. He's going to get thrown in jail.
He's also a Federation civilian.
Yeah.
So it'll be interesting to see what, like, he's allowed to leave in a way the XBs don't have a home.
Yeah.
So what he does next will be an interesting thing to see.
Also, something that was frustrating in this episode was with Raffi, because it's like everything is kind of coming. What she's been talking about is like happening. It's revealing itself as true, and it's just like that woman is just taking beating.
And when she's finally given the redemption and everyone sees that her theories on
I hope
her crazy conspiracy theories are actually what happened,
Will it
maybe she
matter?
gets her security clearance back because Commodore O gets
right.
outed as a Romulan.
By the way, did they
maybe.
explain about the beaming? Why they couldn't beam them off the thing? I mean, at the end, everybody. Why couldn't you just beam everybody off the thing?
That's a really good question.
I feel like it was answered.
I mean,
because she was saying, like, Rios and her were talking about something.
I mean, the Romulans were activated at that point.
I feel like it was answered if we go back and look at it, that they answer it. Probably on their side, on the ship side.
Yeah, maybe we'll find out about it tomorrow. Or, we'll see. Maybe next week they'll save it for next week. But on the topic of next week, guys, I'm very excited to see whether they keep the streak alive and the show has just finally found what All Cylinders is like, and now we're in a good Star Trek show. Maybe.
please keep it up.
We'll find out next week.